What's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bull Central here. Now, guys, I've been wanting to continue providing you all with news and update videos on the Bulls and what's going on with the current season, but honestly, it's been pretty quiet free agency for the Bulls, and not a lot of big news has come out, and so I don't want to just provide daily updates and news that are rumors, speculation, theories, but I'd rather give you guys some, rather fun and interesting content. So with that said, I got a lot of feedback from people who enjoyed the Reacting to Bulls Hot Takes video, which can be found here, in which I delved into my thoughts on 5 hot takes about the Bulls, but left out quite a few so as not to have, an hour-long video. So for today's video, I'll be sharing some more Bulls hot takes that I've seen online or through family and friends and giving my reaction to them. So first up, hot take number 1. The Bulls are the worst run franchise in the entire NBA. Now, I believe this take came most likely when Garpax, they were still running things, since we don't have enough data yet on Arturas's leadership to make that kind of claim. Here's my take on this, and I actually made a video about this last week on why Garpax weren't that bad. Now, I'm not saying Garpax that were good by any means. They actually were a horrible executive front office and should never have been allowed to run the franchise as long as they did. But if the take is the Bulls are the worst run franchise in the entire NBA, meaning they are dead last, well, then I think we need to take a step back and realize a couple of things. First of all, people tend to forget that one thing Garpax did well was drafting. Not all the time. They definitely missed on a number of draft picks, but they did snag some great players like Jimmy Butler, Joakim Noah, Derrick Rose, Taj Gibson, more recently Lauri Markkanen, Kobe White, Wendell Carter Jr. And let's also, not forget that the Bulls finished with a 500 record or better for 9 straight seasons until they hit the reset button when deciding to trade Jimmy Butler. No other team has been able to do that in the last 20 years, with the exception of the San Antonio Spurs. Now, the front office obviously made a lot of poor decisions and created a horrible toxic culture that really kept big name free agents from wanting to come to Chicago. So yes, this franchise has been poorly run, and poorly run for a while, even during the MJ era under Jerry Krause. But do I think they're the worst managed franchise in the entire league? No. Are we going to sit here and forget how badly the Knicks have been run, or say the Sacramento Kings or the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Phoenix Suns? A lot of these teams have rarely seen playoffs for a better part of 2 decades. The Bulls are definitely on the lower end in terms of how the franchise front office has performed, but I wouldn't agree that they are the worst when you look at some of these other teams that have barely seen playoff appearances. I just don't think it's a fair comparison. Okay, hot take number 2. If the Bulls had kept Jimmy Butler, they would have been a title contending team by now. Okay, so here's my issue with this take, because I think it's easy to now say the Bulls screwed up royally in trading Butler because of how well he did this past season with the Heat, effectively leading them to the NBA Finals and actually holding their own against the Lakers. And trust me when I say I wish we had kept Jimmy, and I was livid when I found out the Bulls had traded him. But to say the Bulls would have been a title contending team had they kept him, I don't know if that's entirely accurate. I do think the Bulls would have been much better than where they are right now had they tried to just build around Jimmy instead of pursuing a rebuild. But the fact of the matter is Garpax would have been running things. I don't think they were competent enough to put the right pieces around Jimmy. Keep in mind, Jimmy Butler couldn't close out a series against the Boston Celtics in which they went up 2-0 going back to the United Center for games 3 and 4. They had a 2-0 series lead when Boston had the home court advantage. And then Rajon Rondo got injured. Now, I know it's playoff Rondo we're talking about here, but it was pretty disappointing that both Jimmy Butler and Dwayne Wade couldn't close out a series against Boston with that kind of lead, taking 2 straight games in Boston. Jimmy also struggled to get along with his teammates and the coaching staff, not only just within Chicago, but in Minnesota and Philadelphia as well. And I think Jimmy really needed to be in an ideal situation for him, and he found that in Miami. And I don't think the Bulls would have been able to do that, especially under Garpax's leadership. Okay, hot take number 3. The Bulls were overrated, and the 90s Bulls were overrated and would lose to most of the top teams in today's more competitive league. Okay, false. Quite frankly, the narrative that constantly gets spewed about how today's basketball is so much more competitive than it was in the 90s is just asinine, to say the least. Sure, the overall level of talent and competition in today's game is better than the 90s. I mean, that's a given. But that's because the game will continue to evolve and the talent pool will get better and better as the years go on. I'm sure 30 years from now, people will be saying, the Warriors were overrated, or that LeBron James was overrated compared to the talent of today. The fact of the matter is the Bulls were absolutely dominant in the 90s compared to the talent that they played against at that time. And I would argue they played in a much more physical era of the NBA than what we see today. You can't fault a team for the era that they played in. It doesn't take away from the fact that they won 6 championships and had the greatest player of all time. They were not overrated by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm sure with guys like MJ, Pippen, Rodman, and complementary players like Tony Kukoc, Ron Harper, and Steve Kerr, all in their primes, they would have gone toe-to-toe with some of these title teams we've seen recently. I'm not saying they would destroy these teams like today's Warriors or Cavs, or even most recently the Lakers, and it is possible that these teams would have beat the Bulls. But give me MJ in his prime, even in today's NBA, and I still think he finds a way to win. And I'll just leave it at that. Okay, hot take number 4. The Bulls will make it to the playoffs for this upcoming season. So this one I actually agree with. Honestly, I thought the Bulls were going to make the playoffs last season, given the level of talent they had, and playing in a weak Eastern Conference. I figured squeaking into the 8th spot in the East was doable. But, since we were coached by Jim Boylan, I should have known better that we would have underperformed. But as for this upcoming season, look, if the guys can stay healthy, I don't see a reason why the Bulls shouldn't make the playoffs under a new coach in Billy Donovan, a healthy Lauri Markkanen, and Wendell Carter Jr., because he's obviously struggled with injuries as well, Zach LaVine coming off the great season that he just had, Kobe White if he can continue that hot streak we saw towards the end of the season. And now they've also added in new rookie Patrick Williams. And don't forget, Otto Porter is back and healthy. Now, he's not, a part of the Bulls' long-term plan, but, he's on the team and he's still a serviceable player at the wing. So yes, I think the Bulls should absolutely make the playoffs. It would be a disappointment if they didn't. Anyway, those are my hot takes for today for you guys. Let me know what you guys think of these. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments. And as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan. This is a new channel, so don't miss out, and I will catch you guys in the next one.